Hey everybody, it's Leigh, and I am going to start a series on emotional abuse because yesterday I had 735 views to the video. And what's important to me about that is not that I'm going to get new clients, because I'm sure a lot of the videos weren't people that are anywhere close to Huntsville, Alabama, but because the more education that people can get about emotional abuse, the more likely they are to understand that what they're going through is not something that they have made up. They haven't imagined it. They're not too emotional. They're not too sensitive. They're not stupid. They're not dumb, or any other of the many, many ways that someone that's emotionally abusive will things they'll say to you. I saw somebody come on and I was like all distracted. Hey, Natalie. There's lots of things that people will say to you when you are being emotionally abused so you want to catch on, right? And I'm not even saying that these people know what they're doing, all right? And if it's a cluster B personality disorder like narcissism, oftentimes the only thing they can think about is themselves. So if all they can think about is themselves, then they have no, hey, Jonathan, they have no idea what you're thinking, how you're feeling, because they're not connecting on that same level that you're connecting on. The number one important thing to know about narcissism is that they don't have empathy. Now, some people say that I'm a bit too empathetic, but if you're empathetic, then you're like a lure for narcissists, right? So if you're an empath and you can feel other people's feelings, that narcissist really loves all that care and concern that you have, but they don't feel it back, okay? They can pretend that they do, but that's not the real story. So anyway, after I saw all of the views yesterday, and so many people wrote and said, I was in a relationship like this for years, or it took me this long, or and one person I know had attempted suicide. And of course, and then when she told me the kind of relationship she'd been in, I was like, oh, I get it. So there are a lot of people that are not to the stage yet, obviously, that they know that they're in an emotionally abusive relationship. And if you don't know that you're in an emotionally abusive relationship, I'm going to give you a few tips. And wherever you are, and I'm not a mental health professional, I am a lawyer who's been practicing law for almost 25 years in the domestic arena. And when people are in relationships that are emotionally abusive, it might not surprise you, but the marriages don't go very well. And so a lot of those people end up in my office. So over the course of the last many years, I learned a lot about different kinds of personality disorders, mental health disorders, and I also have been single for quite a few years, and I have my own personal experience. I have read probably 20 or so books on this kind of emotional abuse, both to help my clients, to help me present emotional abuse in the courtroom, and to learn more about how it can impact you. So one of the first things that there's my dog in the back. One of the first things that I think you should recognize is the way you feel. And yesterday, someone from the UK posted a law in the UK that actually says it's punishable by law in the UK to be coercive, manipulative, or controlling of another person. Wow, it's against the law. And I'm having a hard time even trying to prove it in our court. But it's very real, right? It's a very real thing. So I want you to think about, if you're in a relationship and you have been struggling for a while, or maybe you haven't been struggling for very long, but suddenly you are, how do you feel? Just think about it. Writing about, journaling is a good idea. And I've even seen some suggestions to keep a little mini calendar and start cataloging the things that happen to you. Because if you're an empath, if you're born in the Bible Belt like me, if you're the kind of person who wants to make it work, then you are going to do everything in your power to make that relationship work. You're going to go to counseling, you're going to beg, you're going to plead, you're going to try to enlist everybody you know, you're going to do everything in your power to make it work. And that means you're probably going to take a lot more emotional abuse. Because if they have a personality disorder, the person can't understand what they're doing to you. Now, there's lots of different research on that, and I'm not going to go into the different brain sizes or things of that nature, but they just can't connect on that same level. So if you find yourself saying things like, can you put yourself in my shoes? Or if all your friends go, oh my God, I can't believe that happened to you. And you're sitting there thinking, oh, is it that bad? Was that really that bad? Why do you do that? It's not because you're stupid. It's because you're being conditioned not to stand up for yourself. You're being conditioned not to call the other person out. You're being conditioned that if you don't toe the line, then it's over. Because that's another part of being in an emotionally abusive relationship. There's lots of threats of, I don't want to be with you anymore, or we're going to get a divorce if you act like that, or maybe we should get a divorce, or I'm just going to leave, or this isn't working out, or you always act like this. Threats. Now, in a relationship with someone that's healthy, you shouldn't be threatened all the time. But let me tell you what that does to you, which goes back to my, how do you feel? It makes you feel a little crazy. Okay? And then, of course, the emotionally abusive person is going to say, you're crazy. It's a lot of projection going on. And we're not going to talk about projection today. We're still on how do you feel. So if you feel like you're on the edge of your seat all the time, if you feel, and there's a book by the same name, like you're walking on eggshells, if you feel fear, what am I going to get today? Is it going to be that person who loves me, or is it going to be that person who calls me a bitch, or ignores me, or hangs up on me, or screams at me? Which one's it going to be today? If you don't know, then that's a good sign that you're in an emotionally abusive relationship. And when you're in it, which some people have pointed out to me, when you're in a relationship like that, you don't know you're in a relationship like that because you can't see it. You're so entrenched into what you're being conditioned that you no longer, and maybe you grew up in an emotionally abusive relationship, and maybe this is how you see people relate. Maybe you saw your mother and dad yelling at each other, a lot of putting each other down, subtly devaluing each other to you or to somebody else. And maybe you just thought, that's just the way it is, right? That's what marriage is like. But I want to ask you, if you're feeling this way, and especially if you have children, what do you think you're teaching your children? Something to think about, right? And before I even knew what emotional abuse was, I remember sitting with people and they were telling me about the story about their lives and what had happened. And I would say, do you really want to stay? And the worse the situation, and which is basically, I understand much more now, the harder it is to get out of it. It's so hard to get out of it when you're in this state, because first of all, your self-confidence is at its low. Your esteem, and this is not because you're stupid or dumb, and there are certain studies that show your reaction to emotional abuse has nothing to do with your intellect or your success or your ambition or the kind of person you are. Anybody will fall prey to the same kind of reaction when put in this situation. So stop blaming yourself. But as I was sitting there and talking to the people, and they were having such a tough time leaving the relationship, I would say, if not for you, what about for your children? What about for your children? Because if you are feeling in a place of fight or flight, and that's a whole nother story about how we react to stress. But if you're living in that place of, what's going to happen next? Am I going to be yelled at today? Is this going to be a loving text, or is this going to be a text telling you what a horrible person you are, or that you failed to do something? Are they going to kiss you goodnight? Or are they going to scream at you tonight? And maybe nothing you do is right. Maybe you work really, really super hard to make sure that everything looks good, right? Some of this may sound familiar to you. And if it does, wherever you are, and like I said, I'm in Huntsville, Alabama. I can't represent anybody except if you're in Alabama and if you're in the surrounding area. But go to a therapist. Hopefully somebody who specializes in cluster B personality abuse, narcissist, borderline personality, that they know they can help you identify emotional abuse. They can help you figure out good strategies to move out of that abusive situation. And there is a spectrum, right? There's a spectrum of different kinds of people that have narcissistic personality disorder. And let me tell you that you may say, oh, that sounds really hardcore, a narcissist, or to say somebody's a sociopath or a psychopath. But there are studies that there are, let's see, I don't want to get it wrong, but there's a book called The Sociopath Next Door, The Psychopath Next Door, and it talks about how many people that are on this scheme, this spectrum. And so it's very likely that you've encountered people like this. Maybe there's somebody you work with, or maybe it's a parent, or maybe it's a best friend. You don't have to be emotionally abused by anybody. So get help. And I have a company called Project Positive Change, and I've mentioned it before. And I have so many people at Project Positive Change that have experience with dealing with narcissism and borderline and mental health disorders, and that want to help and are happy. They're coaches, they're teachers, they're leaders. They can help you find the strength to move through your relationship, to find the strength to say, I deserve better, to find the strength to embrace that you're not bad, but forgive yourself. Because I know some people that come in to see me and they'll tell me their story and they're filled with shame. And I understand that too. Because when you start saying aloud some of the things that have happened to you, when you start articulating and you realize, wow, then you can feel such shame. But don't feel ashamed, because you can use whatever's happened to you. You can turn it around. You can make a difference in somebody else's life. You can show your children that you're strong. So if you need any help, you can send me a message. I have to say I'm not great at checking the messages on the Facebook page, but I'll try. I can refer you people at Project Positive Change that are experts in so many different ways. And I know many of the coaches there. And I know the kind of work that they do, and I can try to help you find the right person. And I've decided that, the reason I'm doing this series is because as I see person after person come into my office, as I see them cry, as I see them break down, that they need support. And when I realize that the people that have come in to see me are so surprised and shocked that I actually know what they're talking about, I know that there's a huge gap out there for professionals that don't acknowledge emotional abuse, and that in the legal industry, there are clients that are being bullied by their lawyers, just like they are by their spouses. So I just want to tell you guys, I love you, whoever you are, and I know you can do it. I know you can get through this. So just send me messages. Please share if you know somebody that is in a emotionally abusive relationship, or if you're in an emotionally abusive relationship, or maybe you think that you're somebody who's being emotionally abusive, then there's always an opportunity to change and to create a better life for yourself. So have a great day, and I'll be back Monday, and I'm not sure what we're going to talk about, but it may be some of the biggies like projection or gaslighting. Have a great day.